Being sick with an incurable disease, you chose to be frozen until a cure could be found. Waking from your long sleep, you were hoping for good news only to find yourself standing in the middle of a ruin in front of a team of archaeologists. Rise number 06, Frozen Man. Darkness. Silence. A dreamless void stretched endlessly. He had no memory of how long he had floated there, no awareness of the world outside. The last thing he remembered was the cold bite of the cryochamber sealing shut and the whispers of hope that a cure might one day exist for the disease slowly consuming his body. When the stasis chamber finally began to thaw, he opened his eyes to chaos. The sterile white walls he expected were gone. In their place were crumbled stones and faintly glowing carvings. The soft murmur of voices reached him, foreign yet strangely familiar, as if the language had evolved but still carried echoes of his time. The lid of the cryochamber slid open, and his lungs burned as he took his first breath in centuries. The air was thick with dust and mana, a strange energy that tickled his senses in ways he couldn't comprehend. He's awake. The voice came from a young man dressed in tattered robes, his face alight with both awe and fear. Around him stood others, their tools scattered on the ground, their expressions frozen in disbelief. "Where am I?" he rasped, his voice weak, his throat dry as a desert. One of the archaeologists, a woman with silver streaks in her dark hair, stepped forward cautiously. "You're in the ruins of Avalon's last bastion," she said, her words heavy with reverence. "You are a relic of the old world." Days passed, and he learned the truth about the world he had awakened to. The apocalypse had come and gone, leaving behind a shattered civilization struggling to rebuild. Mana had become the lifeblood of the new world, a force as dangerous as it was miraculous. The disease that had once ravaged his body was gone, burned away by the residual mana that now coursed through his veins. But the cure had come at a cost. "You've changed," the silver-haired woman said one evening as they sat by the campfire. "Your body. It's not entirely human anymore. The mana has altered you." He flexed his fingers, watching the faint glow beneath his skin. He could feel the power humming within him, a constant reminder that he was no longer the man he used to be. "Am I a monster?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She shook her head. "You're a survivor. That's what matters." The archaeological team eventually left the ruins, but he stayed behind, drawn to the ancient carvings that seemed to call to him. He spent weeks exploring the labyrinthine passages, uncovering fragments of a story that felt strangely familiar. One day, as he traced the lines of a mural depicting two dragons locked in battle, he heard footsteps echoing through the chamber. He turned, his senses alert, and saw a man and a woman stepping into the light. The man was tall and lean, his sharp eyes scanning the room with practiced precision. The woman beside him was striking, her crimson scales glinting in the dim light, her presence exuding both power and grace. "You're not supposed to be here," the man said, his tone more curious than accusatory. "I could say the same about you," he replied, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. The woman stepped forward, her fiery eyes locking onto his. "You don't belong to this time, do you?" He hesitated, then nodded. "I was frozen centuries ago, before the world fell apart. Now I'm just trying to understand what happened." The man exchanged a glance with the woman, who smiled faintly. "You're not the only one searching for answers," she said. "Perhaps we can help each other." As they sat together, sharing stories of the past and speculating about the future, he felt a strange sense of belonging. The campfire's glow flickered over the stone carvings surrounding them, casting long shadows that danced like restless spirits. The man listened intently as his newfound companions shared their story. A tale of dragons, ancient rulers, and the apocalypse that had reshaped the world. "This mural," the crimson-scaled woman said, pointing to a carving of a shadowy figure looming behind a twisted, maddened dragon. "It's him, the one who brought about the first ruler's fall." "His name was Sylvan," the man murmured, his voice unexpectedly steady, as if the name had surfaced unbidden from deep within him. Both of them turned to him sharply. "How do you know that name?" the man asked, his tone wary. He hesitated, confusion flickering in his mind. "I don't know. It just came to me." But that wasn't entirely true. Ever since he had awakened from cryosleep, strange memories had haunted him, visions of a dragon-shadowed figure whispering in the dark, of intricate sigils glowing with unnatural light, of a voice that wasn't his own urging him forward. Sylvan had watched the world burn from the shadows, his revenge against his father complete. Yet, the satisfaction he had sought never came. The apocalypse spiraled out of control, the chaos consuming everything, including Sylvan himself. As the mana twisted the first ruler into madness, it also corrupted Sylvan's own body. His experiments with forbidden magic had tethered his essence to the mana, and now it was unraveling him. "This is not how it was supposed to end," he muttered, his voice trembling as his form flickered like a dying flame. Desperate, he sought refuge in Avalon's last bastion, the ruins of an ancient stronghold filled with mana-infused relics. There, he performed one final ritual, a gamble to preserve his soul by binding it to another. A vessel, he thought, would ensure his legacy endured, even if he could no longer walk the earth in his own body. But no vessel appeared, not until centuries later. "You said you were sick," the crimson-scaled woman said, her fiery eyes narrowing. "What happened to your disease?" "It's gone," he replied, his voice tinged with disbelief. "When I woke up, it was just gone." "That's not normal," the other man said, crossing his arms. "What really happened in that cryochamber?" He shook his head. I don't know. One moment I was asleep, and the next I was awake, standing in the ruins. But deep down, he did know. Or rather, he felt it. Something foreign yet familiar lurking within him, a presence that wasn't entirely his own. It came to him in flashes, the runes on the cryo-chamber glowing faintly as it malfunctioned, the hum of mana filling the air, the sense of something reaching out to him across time and space. And then, a voice. You will carry my legacy. As the three of them delved deeper into the ruins, the carvings began to shift, the patterns twisting into something alive. The man felt a sharp pain in his chest, as if his very being was resisting something. Stop, he said, clutching his chest. A confrontation. The crimson-scaled woman moved to his side, her claws gentle on his arm. What's happening to you? I don't know, he gasped. It feels like someone's trying to take control. And then, the voice came again, louder this time, echoing in his mind. You are weak, just as I feared. But you will serve. He fell to his knees as a spectral form began to rise from his body. It was Sylvan. His features sharp and cold, his presence oppressive. You're supposed to be dead, the man gasped, staring up at the ghostly figure. Sylvan sneered. I am death. And now, I am you. A struggle. The man's humanity, his memories, and his sheer will pushed back against the invading presence. This is my body, he growled, his voice laced with defiance. Your body is nothing, Sylvan hissed. It's only because of me that you even stand here. I cured you, I gave you power, and now you will submit. But the crimson-scaled woman stepped forward, her eyes blazing. He won't submit to you. With a roar, she unleashed a torrent of fire, her mana burning bright. It wasn't enough to destroy Sylvan's spirit, but it weakened him, forcing him back into the shadows of the man's mind. When it was over, the man sat trembling, his body drenched in sweat. A revelation. He's still inside me, he said, his voice shaking. Then we'll find a way to expel him, she said firmly, her hand resting on his shoulder. But Sylvan's voice whispered in his mind, a cold promise that sent a chill down his spine. You cannot rid yourself of me. You are my vessel, and one day, you will carry out my will. Abound. The ruins grew silent again, the echoes of Sylvan's presence lingering in the air. As they prepared to leave, the man couldn't shake the feeling that his journey was only beginning. Whatever Sylvan planned, he said, his voice steady now, I won't let it happen. Not again. You won't have to face it alone, the crimson-scaled woman said, her gaze fierce yet tender. A journey.